Welcome to my channel. This part we will start from these two beautiful German books. I think that they are only German books which I own in my collection, and both are quite good. Unfortunately, I think that now they are already quite rare. They weren't republished. Maybe Exotischer Urwald is still available. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce the names correctly. I tried to learn German once, but I spectacularly failed. So, German is definitely my weak side. Anyway, here we have this exotic forest. Anyway, book was created by Good Wives and Warriors. You know that I love Good Wives and Warriors, both the Escape series and this one. And I do love it because you know that I love to color animals and flowers, and I love intricate designs. And designs here indeed very detailed and intricate. Also, I really appreciate quality of both books. You don't have to limit yourself with the choice of media you want to use. Here you can see that again bad habits die hard. So again I tested media on the title page, but fortunately here I managed to do quite acceptable page. And here we have mix of watercolors and pencils. So paper is good for watercolor, and on several pages I used watercolor here. The only problem I have with this book is that we never have names of plants, flowers and animals. So when we travel in this book around the world and when we visit some interesting places with some rare species of plants and animals, I would prefer to have their names. You know that I tend to color realistically, like I do in Australian animals, and especially also when we have animals and plants drawn in a little bit exaggerated, maybe slightly decorative way, it's difficult for me to recognize them. But I really try when I start to color something which was indicated from some special region, some territory. I really try to search which animals and plants are traditional there, and I try to find similarities. This map was what attracted me to this book, and you can see that I hadn't colored it yet, but of course one day I plan to do it. And pictures which I have colored here, let me check that I hadn't missed anything. Plenty of good pictures which I want to do here. But we will start from this one, and it was about Japanese island where they have a natural park. Let me check the name. Yeah, it Yakushima, Japan. So here it was easy to recognize all the animals and birds and flowers, but instead of this one, which I also plan to color one day, I selected this one, probably because with the dark background it was easier. Unfortunately, now I don't remember what I used here, probably Prismacolor pencils. Paper is good for almost every pencils. I think that only Colorsofts slided a little bit because maybe not enough texture for them, but all other pencils are quite good. Well, I remember that it was challenging because you need to find which elements will be a little bit brighter so they will be able to attract attention, how not to lose animals even if you can see just the tiny part of them. But in the end I think that I managed to do not a bad work. At least it really helped me to practice on various color combos for the leaves, like normal green, more olive yellow green, some greens with yellow colors, and it was nice trying to combine Prismacolor pencils. Unfortunately, recently I hadn't touched this book, but before it was much more frequent guest on my coloring table, and on this spread I'm really proud of. I remember that it was Well, very long and time-consuming work, and of course, here it's extremely beautiful. At that time, I really didn't think about limiting myself in color, and I even combined pencils from various brands to get brighter and brighter result. But at least each and every of the elements I do love, even if as a final page, oh, it's terribly motley and bright, but still, it's a college style page, so maybe it's acceptable here. At least I do love many of animals here. I remember that it was one of my first attempts to do successful dark fur on the bear, even if he is not very fluffy, but at least there are shadows on his body. I also didn't know how to color bats, so when I managed to color them, I was quite proud of myself. Many nice, cute things which you can find here. Some of the flowers probably are too bright, and as here we have more realistic animals and flowers are a little bit more in fantasy style. Maybe I had to do them slightly less intense, but what is important is that I really enjoyed doing each and every of these elements. Look at this cutie. I remember how I enjoyed doing his eyes, and of course the chameleon also is quite cute here. Good spread. It's old, but I still enjoy looking at it. I do love that we have quite various styles. Some are almost realistic, some are um, combining letters and animals, and they also form the map of the territory. So a lot of fantasy was included in this book, so that's why I also appreciate it. Very good line art, that's why I love good vibes and various. Here another one of my old works. You can see that it was time when I didn't thought about masking black lines, never did it. Maybe for such style, a little bit similar for Mille Marotta when we have ornaments on the bodies. It doesn't matter if I masked black lines. I remember that for the leaves I even used a little bit of ink tents and Derwent drawing pencils. I was run out of creative ideas for the various green combos, but everything else was made with Prismacolors, and for the background I even used soft pastel. Here I practiced how to color snow, both with pencils and with watercolor, and also I played with my set of pearl watercolors when I just got them to do this shiny background, because initially it was black, so it was quite convenient to practice using them here to learn them better. This one I really love. To this bear I decided to add gouache background with the simple mountains behind and at least something for him to stand. Maybe it's some kind of stone. Anyway, now at least he's not hanging in the air. And for the beginner, which I was when I did this gouache background, I think that it's pretty successful. For the bear, I tried to select all muted colors from Derwent Color Soft set only for a couple of elements like these fishes, probably this flower. I added light colors from Prismas. So here you mostly can see what Derwent drawing pencils are capable, and for this book indeed they can be very helpful. I always want to do the left side maybe in January, because it can be done as a winter page but not Christmas. What I really appreciate when you need to color something in January and February without all those snowmen, Christmas tree, you need winter pictures, so this will be in my mind that I can do this one. Next I have this spread, which is also quite old. Here you can see that background is made with soft pastel and birds are quite bright. I think that in the beginning I decided to do it because of this quite famous flowers which can catch insects, so I do love them, not in real life but on pictures. And At least here I managed to color birds in such way that they are definitely not lost. And again, for beginner, I was very happy how I did dark birds on the body here, so he doesn't look flat, that you can see these individual feathers, because I added a lighter color near the tip of the feather, darker color between them. I used a white pencil to highlight some parts, so it also was quite nice. Sometimes it's a little bit tiring to do all those leaves, but in the end I think that it worth it. I have something that I started, wasn't very happy with the background here. I practiced maybe to do a background with soft pencil first and then to color. Anyway, book is good, and of course I plan to color more in it. If you can get this book, I definitely can recommend it because both quality and pictures are quite good. And another book in this series, but from totally different artist and in different style. This one is all about Asia. It's my dream to travel more among all the Asian countries. I won't be talking about this now because now we can't even travel to the nearest countries, but I hope that one day it will be possible, and then I will be greatly inspired by this book. I have a flip through for this book on my channel. Unfortunately, here I have just a couple of pictures done. One is this huge spread where I used a watercolor for the biggest part, even for the pandas, and only small elements I did with pencils. Here I almost failed this spread because I colored from memory. Usually I try to look at reference pictures, but here I thought, but it's panda, everyone know how panda looks, and in such a way I made a mistake, and somehow I decided that had to be black with just couple of white areas of the fur around eyes, and I did a white fur on the belly. Then I realized my mistake, and I was quite thankful that I have white paints. On top of the black head I applied a white paint. And I managed to convert my own mistake into success, because I know that it's not visible now on the screen, but because of the black pencil underpaint, the white paint, you can still see the black through the white, and it helped me to create the texture. That through the white you can see a little bit of black and gray, so full it has a little bit of shading on it. Actually, I also added just a little bit of beige on the sides, and in such way, by combining paint and pencils, I managed to save this one. Baby definitely looks better. On the baby I remembered correct placement of the light and dark areas on the body, but it wasn't very convenient to color near the binding. And now when I look at it, I sort of think that maybe I had to work a little bit more of the bamboo trunks. I don't know if the tree trunk here on the bamboo, but I did everything with watercolor, and at that moment I was happy. Now maybe I would add a little bit more of yellow color to the bamboo, leaving green for the background. But anyway, I am happy that I managed to save this page, and it was quite a good experience in the end, that you don't have to abandon pages, that you have to think which media can help you to save it. And the spread, which I did quite slowly, but where I enjoyed each of the elements. Here we have some souvenirs, some trinkets from different Asian countries, and mostly I used here Prismacolors. I do love how Prismas blend on this paper, and they work really well here. Of course I plan to finish it, but I won't be talking about my usual problems that you never have enough time for all your books, that when you look at the book you think that you can color it from the beginning to the end and you will be completely happy. But then some request arrive or some idea, or maybe you color because of the season, like I do now many Christmas pictures, even if I do want to color flowers, for example. But this winter season it's so short that just 1 month we can color beautiful Christmas pictures, that you always put some books aside and then you forget about them. So that's why I am grateful to these reviews, that I can look at my books once more and that I can remember how many treasures I have in my collection. Many of them were gifts, and this also was a very treasured gift, so thank you, and I promise that next year I will try to color more here, and I will be dreaming that I will be able to visit all the beautiful places which we can see in this book. Another rare gemstone in my collection is this book created based on designs by Jodi Bergsma. It's actually one of the first Coloring Haven magazine's issues, and I am extremely happy that I have it, because books by Jodi Bergsma, they almost don't exist. Only from her personal website you can have, I think, one coloring book with her designs, but here there are plenty of beautiful pictures, and that's where I really ashamed that I hadn't colored here. I even purchased special set of paints and pencils for doing designs here, but you know my usual problem with time. Anyway, here I managed to do just one picture, and here I combined Derwent drawing, some other pencils, probably polychromos, and a lot of gouache paint. For me it was extremely frightening to use so much of gouache here. Again, I am far from good at gouache. Even when I was in school and we tried to use gouache, I never was taught properly how to use them. We just used primary colors, never tried to blend gouache with white, getting light pastel colors, or blending primary colors with black to get muted colors, so I didn't know even the basics how to use it. Then I watched several YouTube videos and I started to appreciate this medium a lot. So of course I hope that if I find time to color more in this book, it will be again with acrylic paint, with gouache, and with pencils also, especially with Derwent color source, which are absolutely perfect for the designs in this book. So here we have gouache background, something like mountain behind them, and I even did the pine tree with gouache, which wasn't definitely the most successful part, but at least I do love both the man and the eagle. The only problem is this book that maybe it has slightly excessive amount of lines. For the pencil it's definitely too much. That's why I thought that using paint would be the best choice, and in such a way your picture it definitely looks closer to the painting. And opaque paints, they were really helpful, but a little bit uh, complicated to use them for an experienced colorist. Absolutely beautiful designs, and in the style which I do love. So even if we have a lot of lines on the bodies, still the style is realistic, and all those additional elements from Native American culture, it's amazing. But we will move forward, and it's a book by Ziflin and Irina Vinnik, Manic Botanic. This book, it has good story, because it was one of my first books. I colored something here. I had quite limited amount of pencils there, but then I also decided that I can test here my Copic markers. I had old set of Copics which I had from time when I was interested in card making and scrapbooking. and I realized that actually I can color them and my old set behaved quite well, but then it was abandoned for some time when I started to get more books, more materials. So after several years I got a question from one of my followers here on YouTube about my opinion about my very first books, what I do think about them now. So I tried to remember which were actually my first books. In the beginning I purchased only Ukrainian or Russian books which were available at the moment. I hadn't discovered yet Book Depository, and I was happy and very fortunate to get this book in a Russian edition. It has perfect, very thick, bright white paper, absolutely perfect for all media. It's a pity that it's difficult to find this book in decent edition now. What we have on Amazon printed on their shitty paper. There is some Asian editions, but they also are quite difficult to find, and mine is really good. So after that question, when I couple of months ago rediscovered this book, I was absolutely happy to start coloring here again, and I have big plans here because I intend to use more alcohol-based markers in my future colorings to practice better with them, and this book is perfect for markers and pencils together. Actually, this is one of my recent works. I think that I did it during this autumn season. Again, a lot of pencils for the main elements, and for the rest I used markers. You can clearly see where are markers and where are pencils here. On this paper I love to use Arteza, I love to use Prismas, I love to use even color softs, so paper is absolutely amazing, and I wish that such book would be available for everyone. It's a pleasure to color it. I think that for now this one is my favorite picture here. Also, it's not an old work. Definitely I think that I did it this year, I hope. I do love how I managed to color this very detailed, very intricate design. When I look at these pictures at the first moment, it's like solving a puzzle when you need to find the main elements which you need to show with the colors, and then some secondary elements which also can be important, like these big leaves here or flowers and berries. And then you need to decide what to do with all those lines and swirls. Also, usually I think that they represent grass or thin branches, and I color them in such a way. That's where markers are quite helpful to do all those thin lines in accurate, tidy way. It's much easier with markers and much quicker. So I really love this one. I'm glad that I managed to practice how to do various berries, various colors. I hope that they don't look flat. And I do love how I did snails. They definitely are the focal point here. The next one is Old by Good. Here I used a lot of Derwent drawing pencils. Again, very good example of what these pencils are capable of. And I used also acrylic paint on the areas where I wasn't able to do texture with pencils, especially on this long pine tree, eagles, needles. So I think that it was a good picture. I was inspired by the coloring which I saw on Instagram, but then I tried to add something from myself, and I still think that it's a good work. That's where I started to use my Copic markers here, and I was very pleasantly surprised how quickly you can color something with markers, how well they blend on this paper. But at that time I had a very limited, tiny set of Copics. It wasn't enough colors, so that's probably why I abandoned to color here. And when I started to color it now, I have much bigger set of markers. Even they are not as good as Copics, still color selection now is much wider, so I definitely is able to color here, and I intend to continue. It's a strange thing, but here I much more love leaves comparing to the squirrels, probably because I didn't color fur normally on the squirrels. They look a little bit bald. I would prefer them to be more fluffy with much better fur texture, but at least leaves, they are not bad. I think that this one I mostly did with Prismacolors. I definitely can recognize both pink lavender colors here and all those Tuscan red, green ochre and sandbar brown colors here. Again, on the background I tried to work with multiple pencils and which would represent underwater colors from green to blue. I think that even the background here is not boring, so I do love this page. Maybe the flower without black lines, it would be a little bit more realistic, but still, because of the bright pink color, I think that it added some nice element on top of the page. Where is the next one? The next one is this a little bit controversial coloring. When I did this page, and it also was this year, so quite recent, I decided to start from the background and I wanted to show that we have very hot summer day. That's why I selected all those yellow and ochre and orange colors for the background. Then I did trees, trying to combine brown colors which I owned for the bark. And then I started to do leaves and actually beetles. That's where I realized that color which I intended to use for the lower part of the body is similar to the tree trunk, so maybe beetles, they would be slightly lost. The same colors for the leaves, for their bodies. I was afraid that I won't be able to attract attention to the beetles even if I use a lot of black for their bodies, but in the end, when I decided to add this more orange brown color to their bodies, I think that they started to look a little bit better, and now I don't think that they are lost, even if the color of the background and the main heroes here, they are quite similar, thanks to black and thanks to this additional color which I added on top of the green and yellow. It's also one of my oldest works. I remember that it was Halloween time and I didn't have any books with Halloween themed pictures. So I realized that I can actually color this one in Halloween colors using deep violet for the background, and I was quite fortunate that I had this Copic marker, beautiful color. Then I added these bright orange flowers, and probably it was the beginning of my love of this pair of colors, orange and violet. I didn't know how to do them. Well, as usual, I forgot how to call this page. I think that when I start to do videos, I tend to forget half of my English vocabulary. Anyway, the web, sure. So the web I did with stripes of white, which I simply left paper, and then a little bit of grey for some of the stripes, and I think that spider web now looks much better. And again, almost everything done with Copics. Yeah, that's the proof that I mostly use alcohol-based markers. The next one I mostly made with Prismacolors. Here I love everything. I don't know why, but this yellow kind of berries, they are my favorite. I love to do them in Emily Lindholm-Oberg books. I love to do them in Clara Markova and even in Hannah Carson. If we have such shape of berries, usually I tend to color them in yellow. Here it was quite interesting to find slightly more muted yellow colors for these elements. And I hope that even if the brightest element here is the poppy, and besides it was one of my first successful attempts how to color not very flat poppy. Mostly it was because of the Irina Vinnik very good, very realistic style. She's extremely talented. So I was happy with my poppy. And then I did mouse. Again I decided against adding some texture of the fur. I mostly concentrated on light and shadows on their bodies, but I still love it. And I do love the background that it's slightly lighter in the central part, darker to the sides. It also helps to attract attention to the mice. That was my first coloring in this book also, and I remember that someone called me at that moment and asked me, "What are you doing?" And I told I color a beetle. I color the vegetables, so it sounds so funny because coloring wasn't popular and people weren't able to understand me what are you actually doing. So I decided to start from this page because it was less frightening for me at the moment. Here we don't have animals, which I was afraid to mess up, and that's why it was my first color choice. I really appreciate that with markers it was much easier to do this intricate pattern. And it was also good to experiment with the leaves. As I said, I had a very limited amount of copies, so I had to combine even such unusual colors like pastel green, pastel pink, pastel peach. But I think that in the end everything worked really well. And finally I have this page which I finished recently. You can see video on my channel, but you can see videos for all these pictures, almost all on my channel. I have individual playlist for all of them. In the beginning, when I finished this one, I was sure that the color choice for the birds, it was a big mistake. I wanted to color them similar to not blue tits. Anyway, when I decided to color them with these blue colors, I didn't think that they will be so lost against the dark blue background. Maybe I had to use more bright yellow colors, at least for their heads or bodies, maybe more brown on the wings, so they would be more visible. But now when I look at it, I think that this page already is so colorful that even if I use yellow, it will be messed up with the yellow on the berries. So it's simply a very busy and very detailed page. I hope that at least when I outlined them with white paint, it helped at least 3 birds to be more visible, to pop up better against the background. And the rest of the page, the berries, the dog rolls, hips. Oh, sorry guys, today definitely not my very good day. So the rest of the berries I definitely enjoyed coloring. I used Arteza, I used alcohol-based markers, and I never am disappointed when something isn't a work in this book because I know all the problems, how difficult it is to manage to color all the details, how it's difficult to find colors to be realistic, to attract attention to as the main characters, not to lose the beautiful botanical details. So I simply will continue my practice. I already know which pages I want to color next. So after all those winter and Christmas time, I definitely will return here now when I am equipped with better choice of alcohol-based markers. I also hope that here I will try to use other types of markers. I purchased myself a set of water-based markers and maybe they also will be good here on this paper. And if today we mostly have coloring books with animals, let me show you this pair created by Victoria Klein, a Russian artist. That was her first book, quite interesting fantasy style book, also published in very good quality. It's one-sided on the very thick, almost cardstock paper. So of course I decided that I can use paint here. And interesting thing here is that here we have animals combined from various parts of other animals, and the connections sometimes they are very unusual. You can see here the wolf with antlers, quite interesting. Pictures which I managed to do here is this bear, and it's morphing into the pine tree. Here I tried to use acrylic paint. I think that on my channel I have video about usage of acrylic paints, my first experience, my tips, how to do manageable, not very disgusting background, how I tried to find the right softness of the brush, how I discovered that when you need to cover the big area with acrylic paints, it's important to do brush strokes in one direction. So it was a lot of pain into my story with acrylic paint, but I think that at least this page it's manageable. I think that I used a little bit of pencils here, but mostly I tried to work with paints. And sometimes with paint it's easier to color many things. For example, pine trees, definitely it's easier to do with paints comparing to pencils. When you work with pencils, you need to start from the lightest color and then gradually to add dark color. With the pine tree, sometimes it's complicated and sometimes it doesn't create the right result of the nice three-dimensional branches of the pine tree. But here, when you can start with the dark color to put is as a base, and then on top of it you can work on individual branches, individual needles, it's much easier to color. The bark here I don't like a lot, but at least I try to use similar colors to show that it's actually morphing into tree, from tree into the bear. And the second page which I did here, I called it Keeper of the Lakes. Here we can see that white wolf is morphing into the mountain area. Again, a lot of acrylic both for the ground here, for the area around the lakes, for the mountains, for the background. On the sky I used first matte acrylic, and on top of it you can see that I added pearl watercolors, so it's beautiful and shiny. Also reminds me a little about northern lights. Pencils I used only here on the trees and to do water brighter, and of course on the jewelry and eyes. It's a very good book, many nice pictures, and it's relatively small, so you can finish pictures in short time. You just need to have quite good imagination how to color such fantasy animals. And the second book by Victoria which I own, it's about Zodiac, so it's divided into 4 parts. We have signs of fire, signs of water, and the only page which I did here, it's the archer. Again, quality of the book is absolutely excellent, one-sided, a very thick cardstock paper. Well, I don't remember, I think that I used maybe watercolor for the background and then acrylic, or maybe even a little bit of neocolors. Sorry guys, I don't remember, but as usual video is on my channel. And then a lot of pencils for the wood, for the leather element of the clothes. Again, I think that in this book you can use Derwent color softs and Derwent drawing pencils together. At least on this paper they behave well, together with many other brands. I think that maybe on my next birthday, because I am a lion, I will do this beauty. Amazing design. Well guys, I hope that you liked this video. Sorry that today I wasn't able to remember half of the English words, but I think that pictures are more important comparing to my babbling. And I was happy to look back at some of my books, and that Asian book probably I won't be putting somewhere close to my coloring table because I really want to return to it. Thank you, and until the next part.